Welcome back to the latest episode of Slightly Tofu. This is Q, and in our last episode, we have talked to animal rights advocates from the Global South, where questions of intersectionality, power, and cultural context are impossible to ignore. Now we're going to shift our focus. We're moving from these vital discussions about cultural translation to the front lines of direct action in Europe. Here, in countries with long-established animal rights movement, the challenges and the mistakes can be quite different. The fight often involves direct pressure campaigns, navigating complex legal systems, and sometimes direct confrontation with authorities. Our first stop is Austria, where we'll hear from an organization that has been in the trenches for decades, pushing for legislative change through relentless and often daring campaigns. We're about to hear from Neni and Julian, two dedicated animal liberation activists from VGT, one of Austria's most influential animal rights organizations. And you are from Austria, VGT,
yes,
right? And your name is?
Julian.
Neni.
So how long have you been working in animal rights movement?
I'm vegan 10 years this year, actually, and in the animal rights movement for 8 years.
8 years. And you?
For me, it's 5 years both, like 5 years vegan and 5 years in the movement.
And you're already starting all these very intensive...
Yeah, I was like really motivated when I started.
And what made you vegan?
For me, it was the climate movement. Like I started becoming vegetarian when I first saw footage of pigs being killed in a CO2 gas chamber. Like that really made me think and really made me feel. And so I became vegetarian. And then I started with some, like in Europe, there were these waves of climate activism. And I started with one of these. And it became clear to me that food and animals and like, it's a big thing, a big impact. And it became pretty naturally, like I talked to people and I just understood it, and then I changed everything to vegan.
For me, it was very random. Just one Sunday night, I remember, I just thought, how are animals slaughtered and how are they raised? And I just watched YouTube videos the whole night. And then I decided, okay, I will never eat an animal again. From that moment on, so I don't know which videos I watched. But for you, it was a VGT investigation. It's very cool because now you work at VGT. I think full circle moment,
And could you tell us, like, for the Chinese audience who have never heard of VGT, how would you describe VGT?
We, I think one of our focuses is that we do pressure campaigning and we try to change the law so the animal have better treatment. And we want to change the law a little better every time. So all people in Austria have like a better relationship with animals, so that animals are better viewed in the whole country. Not only a few people who are vegan, but everyone has to buy eggs that are not from cage, but from a better standard. And we want to raise the standard so much until total animal liberation.
Right.
And it's also important that the steps we take are real steps, like they really have to mean a change in the system, because otherwise it would be like if a window would be just a little bit bigger, that wouldn't change anything. But if egg-laying hens can't live in cages, you have to rebuild the farms or restructure the farms. And so that's really important.
And one of our funders or leaders, he was in prison for the work he did with VGT. And after being in prison for 105 days, he said, I wish that someone out there fight for a bigger cage I was, for a bigger prison cell, because it would made a difference for him in that moment. And that's also, very interesting from that point of view, because we don't know what animals want. But if you took ourselves in the same situation as one of our leaders did when he did go to jail for 100 days, it's very interesting to see it.
This is actually a bit different from the animal abolitionism narrative, because you often hear people arguing we don't want to fight for bigger cage. We want to have the complete elimination of cages.
I totally understand it. It would be very much better for me, and it would be so much nicer to just fight for total animal liberation, for no cages at all. But I think I don't know if it's realistic. So
I started as an abolitionist. Like my first 2 years were 100% vegan outreach on the streets and no cruelty. And like I wanted to do this, but it's kind of pointless because it's such a big step that it's too much of a step in the system. Not everybody can make that.
Yeah.
And so I changed my view completely on that.
Oh.
So I'm still like 100% for abolitionism of the animal abuse. But I don't think it's possible. Like, if you fight for something that's completely impossible, yeah.
And we would never stop at a bigger cage or a bigger window or something like that. The goal is the same, total animal liberation. It's just a different approach. And that, I think it's important because from different countries, from different people, different approaches work. So if we all do every kind of angle, every kind of approach, together we can do it.
I think what's really important for a strategy, sorry if I'm really talking too much, it's really important that the campaign goal is not the only goal. Like people start with our organization when they are not vegan, when they eat meat, like everybody can do campaigns with us. And while they do this, they see the images, they learn the things about animal agriculture. And so they become vegan. Like we have a lot of people who started as meat eaters and VGT and just became vegan over time.
Right.
And we're also like doing a lot of informative investigation campaigns where we just show the system how it is. And that's like, so the strategy is not only everything for the goal, but also take everything at the side that is possible.
And I have a question just regarding the mistakes. Things that you wish you didn't do during, or just like the Western, animal advocates avoided when they were fighting for the liberation for animals.
Vegan, like everything that has vegan as a sole strategy is a mistake from my point of view. Because first of all, this Anonymous for the Voiceless and all these Western new movements, they ignore the complete history of our movement. They just say, like, at my first demo, they told me, we have founded the system, like that's our idea, this outreach system, and there are pictures out of the 90s where outreach is done on the streets. Like, that's not new, but they sold it as new, and also they told us, like, we have the strategy to change, we just have to do it. Like, and that's really dangerous, because I thought, okay, we're doing this for 2 years and then it's done, because people were telling me that. And I think it's really important at the beginning to think about what is your long-term goal and if it's even possible, because there are a lot of promises in activism that are just impossible to hold.
But what do you mean by not having vegan as the only message?
I think it's important to have a vegan infrastructure and to understand why veganism is like the goal, but I don't think it's a strategy. You can't just make everyone vegan because it's really hard in our society to stay a vegan because there are so many obstacles you have to face. And I know so many people who started and were really motivated and just not vegan anymore.
Right.
And I think you can't produce vegans as fast as you lose them. There are a lot of studies who show that.
Yeah.
Like more or less, we're always the same kind of people. Like there isn't a big increase because if these strategies would work, they would have already worked. We would have 40% vegan in any society, and there is no country where it is like that.
And I think in Austria we have the VGT, and the VGT started the vegan society, and now this is a whole organization on its own, kind of. We are like sister organizations. And I think that's also very cool because we have the vegan people who are like lifestyle and recipes, and we have the biggest vegan street food festival in Vienna. It's very cool. We have two this year actually. So that's very important and cool for the movement, for the people.
You are not buying the whole vegan capitalism narrative. You think it's okay to have vegan, like these kind of lifestyle based. It's okay.
Yeah. But at the end, it's very important to have a different goal.
Right.
Total liberation. I just say it's one of the angles that's helping the whole movement.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we say that a lot, we try to adapt our strategy depending on how the local community is set up in Austria. We have 9 districts, and in some districts a lot of pig meat is produced, and in other districts no pig meat is produced. And of course they are completely different. You can't just do everything the same. You have to adapt the strategy.
One of the mistakes I think that are many people do, and very new organizations do, is don't take security culture very serious. It's important to know your rights, to know what you do, to know how to handle serious situations, and your just everything security related is very important to just think about it in an early stage, because then it's when you start making mistakes, you maybe go to the police and show your whole name. And if you do it early on, then you're burned forever.
The insights from Neni and Julian of VGT provide a stark reminder of the realities of frontline activism, the strategic calculations, the long-term vision, and the absolute necessity of protecting oneself and one's community. Their experience in Austria highlights a very specific, pressure-oriented approach to creating change. Now we travel to Ireland to continue this conversation, but from a different vantage point. We'll hear from an activist who has not only participated in the movement for over 2 decades, but has also built an organization from the ground up, shaping its very ethos. Our next guest is Laura, the founder of the National Animal Rights Association, or NARA, in Ireland. Laura has dedicated her life to the cause, not only for animals, but for human rights as well. With over 2 decades of experience comes a great deal of wisdom, especially about the things you wish you had done differently. Laura. Laura, if I pronounce it correctly.
Correct.
Very nice to meet you, and thank you so much for doing this short, casual interview with me.
You're welcome.
So I'm curious, do you still remember the first meaningful encounter that you had with an animal?
That probably would have been when I was about maybe 4 or 5, our family dog Lady. And that was the first animal I can remember. I know that my parents had animals since I was born, I think. But that was the first meaningful encounter.
As pets or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But then how does that relationship shape your attitudes towards animals?
Well, I put it down to my parents really, because they were always big animal lovers, and as I grew up they were adopting more animals, and we were in a lucky enough position to have lots of land. So my parents were rescuing sheep and goats and donkeys, chickens, ducks, dogs, cats, everything, and none of us were vegetarian or vegan at the time. My parents just always loved animals, and therefore I grew up loving animals, taking care of animals. And then when I was 12, I connected the dots that we're caring for these animals, but then eating other animals. So I told them I was going to be a vegetarian. They thought it was a great idea. They went vegetarian as well. I didn't know about veganism at that point. I was only 12. But my mother read a book that talked about veganism. And then that was about a year later when we both went vegan together. And then the following year, my dad and my brother went vegan as well. So my immediate family are all vegan.
Right. And which year was that? Do you remember?
I was 13 when we all went vegan. So I was 13 in 2002, 2003.
And that's so many years ago. At that time, what is a vegan scene in Ireland?
At that time, it was pretty much non-existent. There was a couple of small animal rights groups, but they weren't regularly active. It wasn't like weekly, it wasn't regular, it wasn't sustained campaigns. It was sporadic. And vegan food, my mother had to figure out what to make and what to eat. It wasn't as widely accessible even as it would have been in, say, the UK. So it was difficult, but we managed.
But at what point do you feel like, okay, just maybe rescuing animals are not enough? I actually have to be a bit more political and actually take the steps to make institutional change.
That was when I was about 14. So when I was 14, obviously then I was we got a computer, we were on the internet, and then I started looking into animal rights organizations and more information. And I felt that it wasn't enough for me and my family just to be vegan. I had to try and influence others. And that's how I connected with some of the other animal rights groups. But nothing was a perfect fit for me in Ireland. And I started traveling to the UK a lot and around Europe and learning different tactics and learning about anti-fascism campaigns and anti-racism campaigns. And that sort of broadened my intersectional approach, because I come from a fairly privileged sort of background. So for me, I kind of thought, humans are okay. We need to look after animals next. But it was only with working with activists in the UK I realised, wow, the human situation is not great either. And then it was through activism in the UK that sort of broadened my belief system and tactics. And then I brought that, I suppose, back to Ireland, and then I set up my own organisation in 2007 with our own set of ethos and beliefs and tactics.
Right.
So that's pretty much how it started.
So this is very interesting, the exchange between the UK and also Ireland. And
Yeah.
I wonder, when you were doing these so we were at the very beginning of the planetary talking about how the Asian, how Asian advocates are kind of being, that we feel compelled to copy the strategy from the West.
Yeah.
So when you were talking to the activists in the UK, what kind of reflection was going on at that time for you to say, for example, evaluate what would work in Ireland and what wouldn't work, and how was that like?
I suppose the UK and Ireland are very similar. So it have a similar political structure, similar cultural system. So what was working for them was pressure campaigns and committing to a campaign and doing things several times a week. Whereas in Ireland at the time, it was very much sporadic and erratic in terms of maybe one protest at a circus one month, maybe at a fur shop the next month, nothing was consistent. So it was through British activism, it opened my eyes to the need for consistency. And then obviously then I started getting involved in human rights campaigns, and then that broadened my horizons on the need for mutual solidarity and supporting each other. And then that got me connected to the political left. And then they were able to bring legislative side of things to our street campaigns.
I would love to hear more about that. But let's quickly move to the most important question, the mistakes. Because you have been involved in animal advocacy for over 20 years, right?
Yeah.
If you can just go back in time, in retrospective, what are sort of the common mistakes that you have identified? Like whether it's like more broadly the Western animal advocacy or more kind of like your personal journey as a vegan animal rights activist.
I think like at the beginning, I focused a lot on we need numbers, like lots of people to make change, rather than focusing on the quality of activism rather than the quantity. So for like the first couple of years, my focus was we need more people, when in actual fact, we don't. With our successful fur farming campaign, there was a core team of about 10 of us, and that was a success. And all the fur shops, we got to stop selling fur and things like that. It only took a small group of us. So a big mistake was trying to focus on recruitment rather than just relaxing with what we have. And then another mistake, which I suppose is also based on lack of experience in equipment and technology, was a lot of the imagery and the facts that we would have used at the beginning was based on UK investigations and statistics and US, rather than thinking, okay, we need to actually film in Ireland and do things ourselves here. So we did start with filming fur farms, and now we're obviously doing the pig farm investigations. But I think it's important to learn about your own country rather than using generic models or generic photos. And then a big mistake, not from 2007 onwards, but when I was a teenager, I joined the PETA 2 teenage street team. And I hate PETA now because they're very much racist and sexist, misogynist. But as a teenager, I joined the street team and I was the youth activist of Ireland and whatever. And at the time, it built a sense of community for me, but I didn't realize or understand the extent of how awful PETA were at the time. So I think that a big lesson at the beginning was not to try and jump in and join another group, but to create your own.
Exactly.
Where you know 100% that your morals are consistent.
Yeah. This is very interesting because I would say PETA still has an influence in Asia as well. And some of the...
It has an influence everywhere, I think, still, yeah.
And they sometimes become the only, like the major organizations still. And then I guess, like especially at the earlier stage, people always look up to joining to these more institutionalized operations. with regards to the social justice issue, like what you said, the sexism, people would say, well, I only just care about animals, right? And whatever it takes, any publicity is good publicity. I think especially with PETA. What would you say to animal advocates who think like that?
So much. It's a solid no. And I think that like you can't try and gain from exploiting someone else. And, like I aim with whatever we do to elevate everyone at the same time, not demean sections to elevate another. And I think it's important to be consistent like that, because you're not going to also tactically, you're not going to bring people on board with you from other organizations or other social justice issues if you're demeaning them to elevate one.
I have female friends, female animal advocates saying that all these women participating in the, quote unquote sexist campaigns from PETA, they're autonomous agents themselves. So they're willingly to do these things. And then what is wrong with female nudity? What is wrong with female bodies that we are kind of judging these kind of advocacy?
I wouldn't have an issue if people did that just themselves. But they're doing it under a PETA umbrella. Right. And it's under a PETA template as this is what you must do to gain publicity, to gain success. It's different from if I just decided to walk around naked now. It would be my independent choice.
Right.
But also, from my own experience with PETA, when I was part of this PETA 2 street team, there was a PETA rep in Ireland. And I was 16, and they asked me as a 16-year-old to strip off for a campaign.
Really?
Yes, an underage girl. Yes, exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it was put to me that I had to for the animals.
That's horrible.
And I said no, but I was very much ridiculed and frozen out for saying no.
It's like emotional manipulation and gaslighting.
Yeah.
In a sense. It's crazy. Okay, so Gary Yourofsky recently returned. And I think he made a very strong point about how human rights issues, how these other social justice issues is a destruction of animal rights. I don't remember his main argument. I probably cannot articulate very well, but from the gist of it, it seems that we care a lot about social justice issues, right? We try to incorporate and try to be inclusive as much as we can, but the human rights people, they don't seem to care about animals. It's like they always ask from us, but they don't really actually support us.
Oh, I've so much I could unpack on that. I hate Gary Yourofsky. He's a racist. He's a horrible person, and he's misogynistic. He's Zionist.
Sexual assault.
Yes. There's so much with him, but he just hates people. He's trying to project this as some sort of tactic, I think. But like, again, coming back to, you can't demean one to elevate another. My work with, say, the political left in Ireland over the years, it took them 20 years of me hanging around for them to get on board with what we do. I could have given up on them on day one, but I didn't. And I think it takes us all time to learn and grow and do better. And it's not that they don't care. When you're passionate about a particular issue, you're very focused on that. Like animal rights would be my, say, main campaign issue. But it doesn't mean I don't give my time to other organizations or other issues. And I think other organizations, they might be slower to incorporate other issues, but it doesn't mean they don't have it in them to care. And I think it's up to us to try and build that bridge and connect. But it's definitely, they're not holding us back. I think we need to be open to learning and communicating and engaging. And from my experience, eventually they come on board.
And your experience with the political left in Ireland is an example of that, I think, right?
Yeah.
And gradually. But then what about like the single issue campaign? I think especially for animal abolitionism, there seems to be a lot of resentfulness towards doing only fur or doing only animal agriculture or animal experiment, right? And we need to always promote veganism. It's always have to be this encompassing goal. What do you think about that?
Like, I think like if a particular organization is focusing on one particular issue, then like could be a pressure campaign that they're focusing on to achieve the goal before they move on to something else. But I wouldn't rank animal agriculture over fur or circuses or vice versa. Everything matters to that individual in that situation. And I don't rank oppression. I don't rank suffering as one is more important than the other. And I find that a lot of the abolitionist anti-single issue approach people tend to critique and demean fur campaigns, but surely they should care about mink and fox equally as much as a pig or a cow or a sheep. So I don't understand that, because we have the capacity to care about all creatures at the same time. And for us, we try and do a couple of issues at once as much as we can, as much as like the amount of us can give our time to. But I wouldn't rank one over the other. And at the time of our fur campaign, we did get criticism saying that, oh, it's not a vegan campaign and we should be like doing vegan outreach. Well, that wasn't going to close the fur farms. Campaigning against the fur farms shut them down. And that's one more off the list. And that left us free to move on to the next thing, like pigs. Yeah. But I also think that it's important that, like, if an organization is focusing on something, whether it's vegan outreach or fur circuses or a multitude, they're doing what they feel is the best use of their time. And I don't like critiquing other groups. If they feel that's the best way forward, good.
Right. I guess I'm asking this because in China, we have a huge issue still with cats and dog abuse. And a lot of times, a lot of these animal campaigners, they're facing judgments from the public is that you guys only care about cute animals. Right. Okay. They call them the cute animal protectionists. Okay. Right? Because once you start to like putting a lot of resources, trying to change laws, etc., against the cat and dog traders, then people will say, well, what about insects? You know, what about fish? What about pigs or cows? You guys don't seem to care about these animals, right? So this is like the general public's reaction to these kind of single issue campaign. Yeah.
I think that could be said about like anything really. With our pig campaign, some of the negative comments we've got from non-vegans is, oh, what about sheep? What about cows? What about fish? And my answer to that is, well, they're next on the list. Yeah. We're just doing pigs for now, but there will be more.
Right.
And if an organization feels that tactically one or two species is winnable or achievable to focus on, it doesn't mean that when they achieve the goal, they're going to give up and go on holiday and forget about activism. They're going to move on to the next thing. But I think most organizations like ourselves will start with the easier wins and then build from there.
Pigs are easier. Are pigs easier?
In Ireland, yes, because it's the lowest amount of farms.
I see.
Whereas with, say, cows or sheep, there's tens of thousands of farms. Right. Where there's only 240-ish farms.
I would definitely love to have you on a dedicated episode if you have time in the future.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
How you managed to get these pig farms to be shut down.
Well, hopefully we will. That's the goal.
Yeah, at least one small step at a time. Yes. But then other than the mistakes that you have mentioned, do you have any other things to add?
I suppose when we started trying to do investigations ourselves, we were setting off alarms and doing things wrong, and we did need to get help from like more experienced investigators, because I'm a big fan of just winging it and just seeing what happens. And that did result in having to run from buildings several times after triggering alarms because we weren't used to spotting sensors and things like that. So that would be probably one of the bigger mistakes that could have gotten us probably injured or assaulted. Or
you have a chance to make these mistakes to begin with, because when I started to think about animal activism in China, it's like these kind of investigation is just not going to be possible, unfortunately.
Not yet, maybe.
Not yet, yeah. And what are the, I don't know, in terms of personal experience, the things that that drives you to do this in the long term? I think burnout and feeling very hopeless and also hating human, I think it's just like part of the journey, right? Sometimes you feel like, what is the point? It's hopeless. And what's your personal message or advice?
I think like for me, my rage fuels me and keeps me going. So like,
you seem like such a nice, chill person. You don't look like someone who has rage inside of you. I cannot tell.
Well, thank you. Well, I like all of you guys. So, but like what's happening in the world, like to humans and animals, makes me very angry. But like rather than just be angry or upset about it, I try and think, what can I do to turn that into productivity? So I try and channel the emotion into something that I feel might help in some way, and whether that's like an email or a letter or phone call or a protest or outreach or whatever it may be, I at least feel I'm doing something. But the feeling of inherent hopelessness is still there all the time. But I feel like if I just gave up on that, then my conscience couldn't sit with that. I at least know that even if I don't achieve, I'm trying and I'm doing the best that I can.
Right.
But it's the rage really that fuels it.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
For our final conversation, we journey into the heart of one of the most defining and controversial chapters of the animal rights movement in the West. We're going to the United Kingdom, a country with a long and storied history of confrontational direct action. To truly understand the full spectrum of animal advocacy and the mistakes and the motivations that have shaped it, we must be willing to listen to the voices from its most radical edge. Those who decided that conventional protest was not enough. A note before we begin. The following segment is intended to provide a historical and ideological perspective on the animal liberation movement. It is an examination of the motivations behind direct action and is not endorsement or encouragement of any illegal activities. Our goal is to understand more fully about the context of this complex movement, including its most uncompromising elements. So this brings us to our final guest, Max. Max is a figure who has been deeply involved in the UK's animal rights movement since the mid-1980s. He has been a hunt saboteur, a campaigner, and an organizer, but he is perhaps best known for his involvement in the so-called third wave of the UK's Animal Liberation Front in the early 90s. This was a period of intense direct action, where massive economic damage was inflicted on industries and individuals deemed to be animal abusers. For his part in that wave, Max received a 3-year prison sentence. He offers us a perspective forged in decades of conflict, one that remains, in his own words, uncompromising when it comes to animal liberation. This is not a story about changing minds through outreach. It is a look into a world where the primary goal was and is to physically stop animal exploitation through direct intervention. We now hear from Max. Could you maybe first introduce yourself?
Really? Hello. Hello, I'm Max Watson.
First military vegan I met in the wild.
In the wild?
I've never met, yeah. I don't think I've ever met.
Someone as mental as me.
Do you think you're mental?
Yeah, pretty mental.
It's a compliment.
Mad Max.
It's a compliment in such a mad world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm mental in mostly a good way. Not completely.
Right. And I think you started your animal activism the year when I was born.
Oh God.
1989, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Or that was when you started ALF, or?
Yeah, 89. I was 18. So that's when I became a hunt sab. And then a few months later, yeah, did my first ALF action. But I first got interested in animal rights when I was 11.
Really?
Yeah.
And you were brought up in a veggie environment.
But
right?
I went veggie. I stopped eating meat when I was 13. So I started at 11. I was started hearing about animal rights issues and reading about them. And then at 13, that's when I stopped eating meat. And then I went on my first demos when I was about 15, anti-vivisection marches.
Right. But that was a major thing in the British animal movement, right? Anti-vivisection.
Yeah. I mean, all of it was really in the 80s. Everything was big. There was a big campaign to sort of save the rainforest and save the whale. That was a big thing. And there was also quite a lot of stuff about battery farming as well, and factory farming in general. The 80s was really big for animal rights issues. Really big.
You kind of avoided I guess the word would be like a hurdle, because your family supports you, or you have this friend or community who support you.
Yeah.
Right.
I suppose, yeah. My sort of experience of it all is probably pretty different and unusual. And I know it sounds weird, but I kind of feel like that it was my destiny to be an animal liberationist. I'm not saying God put me here for it. I wouldn't go that far, but it kind of if there's such a thing as fate, then it's my fate. You know, whether I
Right.
sometimes I don't like it.
Do you remember this like epiphany, or was there like a moment that
Yeah.
you feel like, oh, this
Yeah.
is not just about me eating, changing the way I eat, but I actually have to do something about it?
Do you know what? It all happened when I stopped eating meat when I was 13. So I've been hearing about these animal rights issues in the background. And then I saw on national TV a documentary about whaling. And so all the stuff I must have been reading about animal experiments and factory farming must have been going in the back of my head. 11, 12, 13, you don't really know much about yourself or life. So naive, really. And then I saw this whaling documentary where they were chasing these whales in these big industrial ships, harpooning them, the blood going into the sea, then hauling them onto the ships where they're going to basically be chopped up.
Yeah.
Sort of like floating slaughterhouse and meat packing place. And I just remember crying my eyes out, like sobbing. And then all the things that every compassionate person or vegan or person that's into animal rights, we all have those same responses when you see something horrible going on.
Yeah.
You're upset, so you cry. Then you have like despair, hopelessness, frustration, anger, a bit of hatred as well.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't lie, like, and that's when it happened. I said to myself, I don't want any part of how humans treat other animals. That's the thought I had. I don't want any part of that.
But I also see a lot of people can turn a blind eye, like they have witnessed animal suffering.
Yeah.
Like I also went through that stage when I feel like, oh, I can actually turn that off because I'm not seeing it very constantly. I can just avoid, turn a blind eye on it.
Well, I guess that's what I did when I was reading these animal rights things, 11 and 12, for not doing anything. But I kind of blame that on the fact I was just so young and my view of the world was innocent,
Right, and you probably have classmates or just like their close friends at that time who don't really understand what you're doing or don't feel as strongly as you did.
Oh, definitely, yeah. None of them really
alone, or do you feel like not being understood at that time?
Definitely not understood. But the main thing was when I realised that when I told people about it, what I'd learned, they didn't seem bothered. And I was like, wow, because this has really got to the core of me.
Yeah.
And when people don't react the same as you, it's like, well,
I need to reevaluate our friendship.
Yeah. Yeah, or just like, what are humans,
Yeah.
Because like it's one thing like your friend being into punk or whatever and you being into heavy metal and different taste in music, but when it comes to like horrific stuff going on and they don't seem that bothered, you're like, what? And
this is actually what I kind of curious, because you said like the punk scene in the UK also played a huge role in animal rights and all these activism, with the DIY and anarchism and Could you tell us a bit more, like for Chinese audience who have no idea about the intersection of punk music and animal rights?
Yeah, I suppose the best place to start is to listen to the mainstream bands like The Clash and the Sex Pistols, who are basically...
Were they vegan? No,
none of them were vegan, no.
But they do have the spirit.
It's the rebellion.
Yeah.
The thing about punk was the rebellious spirit, and it was very much tied in with an anarchist philosophy, even if not a well-developed or serious one. It was always kind of like, we don't like the police, we don't like the government, we don't like your crappy jobs, that sort of thing.
Right.
So it's just really rebelling against the bland repetitiveness of capitalist life for ordinary people, which is 9 to 5 job, chasing your tail for money to pay rent, to pay the bills, to pay your food and survive, and nothing going on, nothing good in society. Yeah. Especially in the 80s and 90s, there's nothing to do. There's no internet, there's no game systems.
No TikTok.
Yeah.
What about Black Sabbath? I remember you said something about Black Sabbath during your... It just seems like people have very conflicted view about
Ozzy Osbourne.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, I don't think he's popular with animal rights people.
Exactly, but Peter wrote an article. Oh, no, I think Guardian. Yeah, Peter wrote an article about him and said that later in his life, he got, I think, more kind of, he was doing some animal advocacy or something.
It's possible. it's possible. I don't know about that.
But there are two members, I think, maybe two members from Black Sabbath. They were vegan.
Geezer Butler, the bassist,
Right, yeah.
and Bill Ward, the drummer, which I only heard about recently. I was like, fucking hell. Wow, two of them are vegan.
How can they put up with
Ozzy.
Ozzy?
Well, he left the band years ago, didn't he?
Right,
Decades ago. So they've reunited for gigs and like an album. That's it,
Right.
So they've probably gone vegan in the time when they weren't in Black Sabbath anymore.
So just generally speaking, in terms of mistakes, in terms of missteps, right? The things that you wish the Western animal movement have avoided, that they shouldn't do. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing is it's probably all relevant, to the situation. Like, so in England, I've kind of got the luxury to choose between types of activism. Is obviously, say in China, you really haven't got that choice to say this type of action versus that.
Yeah.
So I've kind of got the luxury to be able to choose with that. And I would say that, I look back and I think I've spent so many thousands of hours driving to places, lots of meetings. Meetings are important, but not all of them. Some meetings you go to and nothing really is productive from it. But I think of all the thousands and thousands of hours I've driven for things like meetings that weren't productive. And when I've done things like standing outside places like McDonald's or other stores or whatever, giving leaflets out, I look back and I think that was probably a waste of my youth.
This is something I think I brought this up. Like earlier in our conversation, I mentioned Stephen Best have talked a lot about how animal abolitionism spends so much time on vegan education is a waste of time. And I think an analogy would be, if we have kids, being trapped in the burning house, we wouldn't hand out booklets.
Well, I say
We
that.
would try to just get them out.
I say that there's an argument that a lot of vegans are speciesist because they don't go to the same lengths they would if it was their mum.
Still
if it was your mum,
instilled in our
anything happening to your mum, most people are going to do almost anything. Up to murder, really. If your mum's someone's threatening to kill your mum, people are going to do anything. And I'm not saying that that's what people should do, because you have to understand the situations differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not really into the education. I mean, education has got a place, but I don't think in terms of animal rights or animal liberation, it really doesn't achieve anything.
You don't think people's mind could be changed just because of education?
And even if it is, what does that mean? Like, it just seems very convoluted, a watered down approach to me. I've done it. That's what I think. I am critical of outreach and education. I'm known for it. That I don't think it's productive. I think it's a waste of time.
What about the, Earthling Ed in the UK?
Well, apparently he helped cut down a pig slaughterhouse in Manchester. Tulip Pig Slaughterhouse Abattoir. Quite big, really big slaughterhouse, 24 hours a day, 24/7. So that's good, But yeah, I'm not really into the Joey Carb Strong Earthling Ed.
Right.
They're very much for the outreach, and there's also a lot of that me. Look at me, I'm all over the internet. I'm a personality. Everyone loves me. It's like, all right. For me, once you've been involved a little time, and you realise that we're up against a really difficult, horrendous, big situation, I think there comes a time when you should be saying to yourself as an animal rights, animal liberation advocate, what am I doing? What am I achieving? And this is one of the things I talk about a lot, which is the idea of choosing winnable targets and choosing really one company at a time. Just pick one company at a time. Make sure that you can win that by closing them down. And then ideally you want to have the mindset of whatever it takes, you're going to close it down. So that's when the actions become more and more and more serious, because if people don't give up after your first 2 or 3 actions that are fairly mild by what's going to come later, then you end up doing more serious stuff.
And how would you respond to people's, say, for example, critiques about, well, what about the livelihoods of those employees working at these companies, and how would you respond to that?
I don't have any care about them at all. Like, obviously, I don't want people to not be able to eat or look after themselves. It's a general thing.
Yeah.
But if you're working as part of an animal abuse establishment, I'm sorry, but like, once we started a campaign, you know what it's about, and if you carry on there, well, that's your choice.
Yeah, because there's so much reflection about this at this conference as well.
Really?
We're talking about, lots of, discussion about intersectionality, how promoting veganism, we can forget the humans that needs liberated as well, the humans that are being trapped in the same kind of exploitative, system.
Well, we all live under global capitalism, what
Yeah.
I'm calling ultra-capitalism these days, because there's no shame in it.
Yeah.
You've got all the major powers, China, US, Russia, Britain, Western Europe, Northern America. All of them are just going for all-out cash, make cash, industrialized capitalist cash.
Yeah.
But at a full level, there's no shame in it. There's virtually no anti-capitalist movements like there used to be in the 90s. So we're all trapped in that, animals and human. But my view recently actually has been that if you're an animal liberationist, I've started to come around to this viewpoint, which sounds kind of a little bit narrow-minded, but it's not, if you think about it, is that I think animal liberation should essentially just focus on animal liberation. Yes, there's a million and one issues everywhere, You could spend your entire life picking up injured birds from the street, caring for them, taking to a sanctuary, looking after them. There's all sorts of different things. You could help homeless people out or help disabled children who find it difficult to do normal activities. There's so many different things you could do to help people or animals that are less fortunate situation than themselves. But because the animal abuse is so big and so horrendous, I've started to think we should only really focus on that. Doesn't mean you can't do other stuff, but I really think that the focus has to be on animal liberation. And that's the only way we're going to win.
Have you ever changed your mind about something?
Yeah, loads of stuff.
Feel like you were completely wrong about something during the animal rights activism?
I've changed my mind about lots of little things. Like, protests are futile, even though I've done loads and loads and loads of protests. I generally think now they're futile, I'm just going to be honest with myself and everyone else around me. So I changed my mind on the smaller things like that, but even I always knew it was futile. That's why I did the direct action, because I was like, this is rubbish, I'm frustrated with this. Where's this going? Giving out leaflets outside McDonald's. How is this doing anything? Nothing. Yeah. Even if I turned 1,000 people vegan, which I didn't at any point, but even if I did, that's still, it's not really there's no impact. And this is why I like the winnable things and picking targets. So you actually have one company that you focus on and you make an example with them. Because if you focus on one company, trust me, all the other companies in that industry will be like, oh God, we don't want that. And all the people who invest and supply these companies will be like, oh, we don't really want anything to do with that, because they get animal rights heat. They get a lot of trouble.
Signal.
Yeah, exactly. But you do have to focus on one target, make it winnable.
Yeah.
And really, you need quite a lot of you, and you need the whole movement to be focused on that one target in one country. And that's how you win. And it doesn't matter even if there's just 5 or 10 of you. Because you can do it. You can close down any company with 5 or 10 people. Even the biggest company, you could.
Right.
You'd have to be really, really radical and clever. It's all about using your imagination,
What are some of the more creative strategies you can, on top of your head, when you feel like, oh, that was kind of really something that innovative and never have been done before?
Probably the late 90s, the second half of the 90s. The home visits and the home demos, and then the other more intimidating hardcore home stuff.
How would you define home visits? Like, what is it
Well,
exactly?
I'd say a home demo is different from a home visit.
Okay.
A home demo, you go to the person's house. It might be a big shareholder in a horrible lab you're targeting. It might be a worker in a lab. Might be the director
It sounds
of the lab.
very tame home visit.
Yeah, oh, well, the home demo is fairly tame, but, you know, people don't want a group of people outside their house shouting about they're abusing animals and their neighbours all here. But a home visit is where you do something more serious, criminal. So you go around their house at 2 in the morning and all of their windows get smashed in. And it gives them the biggest shock because it feels like your house is falling in on you.
Yeah.
You know, every single window getting smashed at once in 20 seconds and then you're away. You know, and there was a lot of that went on. And nearly everyone who had one of those home visits left the company or stopped investing in the company or stopped working for the company, stopped supplying the company. They all stopped.
Really?
Once that happens, yeah, because they're terrified.
It didn't backfire.
Yeah, well, people got nicked for it and sent to jail for those things. So that backfired. And obviously the press made a real big deal of it, saying that we're terrorists, intimidating people in their homes. Yeah. Which you could argue that is true.
Depends on how you define terrorism.
Exactly, yeah. Well, you know, like, exactly, terrorism is a word used by the state, basically, to demean a certain group of people who are normally politically opposed to the status quo. But, you know, the real terrorism is the fear in all the animals' eyes. Yeah. Because they can't rationalise anything that goes on with them.
Exactly.
To the extent where they can calm themselves down. Yeah. They just have fight or flight and what's going on here. Their instincts. So, yeah, that's the real terrorism.
And that's the end of this special episode. What we've heard today isn't a roadmap. It's a set of tools, challenges, and provocations. Slightly Tofu doesn't claim to know which path is right. If anything, these conversations show there may not be a single one. So here's a question we'll leave with you. What does effective advocacy look like where you are? Can we hold both the righteous anger of animal-first activists and the steady bridge-building work of others? This conversation has to continue. You can find Slightly Tofu on all major podcast platforms. If you value this episode, share it with a friend or leave a review. It really helps us keep these discussions going. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep working towards a more compassionate world.